The postseason test in Abu Dhabi has come to an end. And while the results might not seem significant to everyone, there were still plenty of surprises. Sure, the times might not mean much for all the teams, considering the different tires and car setups that were tested, but some teams certainly adapted better than others. And with a major star missing in a red suit, along with some intense competition for Red Bull's second seat, the question on everyone's mind is, did this test give us any clues about what's to come? Every season has its challenges, and 2024 is no different. The first tire test of the postseason in Abu Dhabi saw teams testing out new tire compounds, excluding the C1 due to its incompatibility with the desert's heat. Teams worked with the softer C6 compound, which is being considered for the next season. At this stage, we don't have a clear idea about the tire's effectiveness, but what we do know is that Carlos Sainz impressed everyone. He managed to set the second fastest lap time, leading for an impressive stretch of the session before being knocked down by Lando Norris as track temperature shifted and the conditions started to favor Ferrari's SF24. The session itself was relatively smooth. Aside from a minor spin from Lando Norris, there were no major incidents to speak of, and the focus really shifted to how well drivers were adjusting to their new setups. And for rookies and experienced drivers alike, this was all about getting familiar with the car and understanding how the new components affect their performance. One of the most interesting stories was from rookie driver Andrea Antonelli, who showed exceptional speed and found himself just behind his teammate, George Russell. This is especially impressive considering the pressure Antonelli is under in his first season, stepping into a highly competitive team and machinery. But the biggest surprise of the day came from Nico Hülkenberg, who managed to land a solid P3 after completing a strong 130 laps. His performance stood out, especially because he was dealing with a flu during the test. It was a huge effort from the German driver, and it highlights just how tough this test was for all the newcomers. However, the attention was firmly on the two Red Bull drivers Yuki Tsunoda and Liam Lawson. The spotlight was certainly on Yuki Tsunoda during this test, as it marked his first outing with Red Bull after years of collaboration with the team. Everyone was eager to see how he would adapt to the RB20, especially after all the talk about him potentially stepping up to a more prominent role within the team. Despite his long history with Red Bull, Tsunoda's performance during the test wasn't exactly eye-catching. He completed 127 laps but ended up with the 17th fastest time, even behind fellow Red Bull junior Liam Lawson. But Tsunoda didn't seem too fazed by the results. In fact, he seemed to feel comfortable with the car right from the start. He spoke about how he immediately understood the limitations of the RB20 once he got behind the wheel. He mentioned that when you don't have full confidence in the car, you can't feel those limitations as clearly. For Tsunoda, it wasn't so much about struggling to adapt, he seemed to have a good understanding of what the car needed. His team principal, Laurent Mekies, even suggested that Tsunoda is more than ready for a Red Bull seat, and the results of this tire test may not necessarily reflect his potential. On the other hand, Liam Lawson's performance stood out as well. He completed the most laps of anyone during the test, driving 159 laps in total. While his lap times weren't as fast as some might have hoped, Lawson's consistent performance was a key highlight. The focus for him and Tsunoda was likely different, with Lawson's testing program designed to give Red Bull more data for the upcoming season. Isaac Hadjar, another Red Bull junior, also impressed in his 110 laps. Despite the differences in their programs, Hadjar and Lawson showed that they are ready for bigger challenges, but it's Lawson who appears to have the inside track to replace Daniel Ricciardo at Red Bull. After this test, the idea of Lawson being promoted seems more likely, especially given his strong connection with the team and his impressive work ethic. In a way, this test might have solidified Lawson's position as the next big thing for Red Bull. If Red Bull decides to promote him to a full-time seat for 2025, Hadjar would be a prime candidate for the vacant seat in AlphaTauri. As the F2 season proved, Hadjar was a title contender until the final race. It's clear that the future is looking bright for these young drivers. One major name we didn't see at the test was Lewis Hamilton. The seven-time world champion has already started his ambassadorial duties with Mercedes, traveling to Rwanda and later heading to the team's headquarters in Stuttgart and Brackley. While Hamilton's absence from the test was no surprise given that he's focused on his post-2024 plans, it's clear that he wasn't thrilled about missing out on the opportunity. For a driver of Hamilton's caliber, the opportunity to rack up laps in a car is invaluable, and he acknowledged that not being part of the tire test would hurt his preparations for the 2025 season. Hamilton pointed out that even as a seasoned driver, there's always something new to learn from a car, especially when you're a driver who's already been through everything that the sport throws at you. He admitted that not participating in the test was a setback, even though he understood that his role with Mercedes had him focused on other things. Although he wasn't testing in Abu Dhabi, Hamilton kept a close eye on his future teammate, Charles Leclerc, who was at the top of the timesheets. While it's easy to dismiss these test results considering they're spread out over an entire day, there's no denying that the Ferrari driver's strong showing signals that things might not be so simple for Hamilton in 2025. As we look ahead to the 2025 season, there's no doubt that Hamilton will face a tough challenge at Ferrari. His former rival, Nico Rosberg, weighed in on the situation, and his comments have added fuel to the fire. Rosberg, who battled Hamilton fiercely during their time together at Mercedes, believes Hamilton will have a lot to prove when he steps into the Ferrari seat. According to Rosberg, there's a real possibility that Hamilton might struggle to match the expectations at Ferrari, especially if he's not able to find his old form. Rosberg pointed out that there's always a fear when you're no longer performing at the level you once did, and for Hamilton this fear might be amplified when he joins a team with a younger, highly talented driver like Leclerc. If Hamilton struggles at Ferrari, it could be a painful journey for him, one where he's constantly compared to his teammate and questioned about whether he's truly the same driver who dominated the sport for so long. The pressure will be on Hamilton to prove that he can still deliver the results and fight for world championships. Rosberg's comments highlight just how high the stakes are for Hamilton, and the former champion will have to work hard to silence any doubts about his abilities in the upcoming seasons. While there's no doubt that Hamilton has the talent to compete, the transition to Ferrari will be a different challenge altogether. Now that the test in Abu Dhabi is behind us, all eyes are on the upcoming season. With the rookies and new faces making their mark, there's a lot to look forward to in 2025. It's clear that some teams have made strategic moves to strengthen their lineups, and this could lead to some unexpected surprises on the grid. As we've seen with drivers like Lawson, Hadjar, and Antonelli, the future of Formula One is in good hands, and the competition is only going to get fiercer. The real question is which teams will be able to leverage their new talent to their advantage. Will some of the smaller teams make significant strides and catch up to the top dogs? The development of these new drivers could be the key to unlocking fresh dynamics in the sport, and that's what makes the 2025 season so exciting. With drivers like Hamilton set for a fresh start at Ferrari, the tension between the established stars and the hungry newcomers will create an electric atmosphere for next year. As always, the best drivers will rise to the occasion, and we're in for a season full of high stakes and drama. What do you think? Are there any particular teams or drivers you're excited to see in action? Do you think the reshuffling of the driver lineups will shake up the pecking order? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And while you're at it, make sure to check out the video that's now appearing on your screen. The postseason test in Abu Dhabi has come to an end. And while the results might not seem significant to everyone, there were still plenty of surprises. Sure, the times might not mean much for all the teams considering the different tires and car setups that were tested, but some teams certainly adapted better than others. And with a major star missing in a red suit, along with some intense competition for Red Bull's second seat, the question on everyone's mind is, did this test give us any clues about what's to come?